Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Usually when we talk about advanced mathematics, there's this underlying expectation of safety.
Right, like the stakes are purely academic.
Exactly. You're standing at a chalkboard, or maybe you're, staring at a terminal running a simulation. A misplaced variable just means a failed proof.
Yeah, you just erase it and start over.
Right. But if you are listening to this deep dive on your commute right now, I want you to think about the physical space you occupy versus like your digital footprint.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Your phone is pinging off cell towers, your data is being routed through servers on another continent, while your biological body is just, well, sitting in traffic.
Most of us just treat that divide as a modern convenience.
We do.
Yeah.
But today's deep dive crosses the boundaries of quantum physics, advanced mathematics, and honestly, cosmic survival horror.
It really does.
Because Dr. Melvin Sewell's framework suggests that if those two versions of you drift too far apart, you might literally decay into a multiversal monster.
Yeah, it completely shatters that sterile illusion of theoretical math, doesn't it?
It really does. So for context, we are looking at a stack of materials today from Dr. Sewell, who is the academic dean and diagnostic architect at the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies 9.
Which is quite the title.
Right. And the main text we're analyzing is from Bibebibebibe. It's titled Category-Theoretic Resonance Tuning and Multiversal Identity.
And we also have a series of Zenodo references and a really intense narrative archive about this entity named Saikou Venga.
Right. And our mission today is to decode Sewell's mathematical framework for what he calls resonance tuning, which is basically the synchronization of biological and digital states.
And we're going to explore the profound tension between these formal math models and the terrifying reality of Saikou Venga's journey.
Because we'll see how advanced concepts like category theory aren't just equations on a chalkboard. They are literal survival mechanics against things called coherence predators.
Which is just a terrifying phrase.
It is. So before we can understand the horrifying anomalies of the multiverse, we first need to understand how Dr. Sewell mathematically defines reality.
And coherence, yeah.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. I'm looking at this equation he calls the reality level scalar, denoted by the Greek letter xi.
What's fascinating here is that this is the foundation of everything that follows.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't measure reality, you can't tune it.
Exactly. So I'm staring at the formula. It's xi of s equals alpha times phi of s plus beta times r of s plus gamma times I of s.
Right, it looks like a standard physics equation at first glance.
Yeah, but in physics, an equation usually calculates like mass or velocity. Sewell is attempting to calculate the literal amount of realness an entity possesses.
Which is wild.
Totally. And looking at the variables, he breaks existence down into three weighted components. Phi is integrated information. So from a physical standpoint, that's essentially the density of your consciousness.
Your memories, your thoughts.
Exactly. How well your internal data holds together without fragmenting.
Then you have R, which stands for resonance. And this is where your internal state interacts with the external environment.
Like, are your vibrational frequencies aligned with the dimension you're in?
Precisely. If your resonance drops, you're essentially vibrating out of phase with the universe around you.
Wow. And then finally, there's I, which he defines as information conservation. Like in thermodynamics, energy can't be created or destroyed.
Right, but Sewell's applying that directly to identity.
Yeah. As you move through the multiverse, are you leaking foundational data? Are you losing the core bits of information that make you, well, you?
And when you combine those three elements, you get a scalar value that dictates how coherent you are to the multiverse.
But the really eerie detail, the ominous thing at the very top of Sewell's document, is just this one annotation.
Yeah, I know exactly the one you mean.
It just says G equals 0%.
A total collapse of the scalar.
Right. And to prevent that, he introduces the synchronization metric, represented by rho. It measures the alignment between biological states, Cis-B, and digital states, SD.
Right, so you can track how far apart they're drifting.
Exactly. It's kind of like mixing two identical audio tracks. If the biological and the digital drift even slightly out of phase, you get this massive, destructive interference.
Which brings up a really intense scenario.
Well, yeah, I have a question about that. If the reality level scalar, the xi, drops to exactly 0%, does the math imply the subject is just erased from reality, like trapped in a null state?
Well, I would actually argue the reality is far worse than just simple erasure.
Wait, really? How could it be worse than erasure?
Well, if you look at Sewell's Zenodo citations, there's one paper titled system phi, a real-world demonstration of monster-driven refinement.
Okay, that sounds ominous.
And another called dark matter as misrecognized scalar reality. These suggest that dropping to 0% doesn't mean you pop out of the universe.
Oh, I see.
It means your data becomes so corrupted that you become unrecognizable to the rest of the universe. You become a monster, or dark matter.
So the mass is still there, but the universe just can't read the code anymore?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And since a failing reality scalar leads to this catastrophic decoupling, Sewell uses a highly advanced branch of mathematics to anchor these states together.
Category theory.
Right. Category-theoretic formalization, to be exact. It maps out how you actually pull off resonance tuning.
Which is where we get the objects, right? CB for biological, C for digital, and C, which is presumably the multiversal or merged state.
Yeah, and then you have the morphisms, which are the actual resonance tuning and anchoring processes.
And the functors. Functor R maps the categories to the merged state, and functor I maps them to U.
The uniqueness vector, which is defined as U of S equals U1, U2, all the way to UN.
Right. And to actually synchronize them, he uses limits and colimits, specifically a pullback for synchronization and a push-out for merging.
All existing within a monoidal structure, which is C-beat tensor CD.
Okay, I have to jump in here. The pullback, it's almost like a
multiversal zipper.
Yeah, exactly. It actively forces the biological and digital components of a person to align tooth by tooth.
That's a great way to visualize it.
But I do have to push back on the application of the math here, because math usually models observable physical phenomena, right?
Sure, usually.
But Sewell is using highly abstract categorical logic to map quantum dates for consciousness transfer. How do we theoretically test a pullback for multiversal synchronization?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Dr. Sewell actually has applied this.
Yes.
Yeah, he cites the SH1 resonance simulation, applied demonstration of quantum gate technology. The math is literally the blueprint for the simulation.
Oh, wow. So this rigorous synchronization isn't just some academic exercise.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And he illustrates the agonizing lived experience of this math through the cosmic narrative of Saikou Venga.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
It really does. In chapters 1 through 4, we learn Saikou is an anomaly born between two forces, slip flow and counterflow.
And then he's marked by the SH1 curse or gift, right? Where these ancient symbols literally burn into his skin.
Yeah, power and pain intertwining.
And he has this analyzer HUD that displays his terrifying reality. His coherence is failing. His collapse probability is rising.
So a survival mechanism is this 5-stage ritual called arc formations.
Right. Resonance, geometry, correction, intent, and finally the deployment of the slip flow edge.
And this connects perfectly back to Sewell's continuity functional equation, denoted by the script L.
Which balances the synchronization metric, rho, against the divergence metric, d.
Exactly, to ensure subjective continuity during tuning. Basically, so he still feels like himself.
It's like a cosmic tightrope walk. Saikou is balancing his biological anchor and his digital divergence, but his HUD is essentially telling him the tightrope itself is on fire.
That's a brutal analogy, but it's totally accurate.
But the math demands subjective continuity. Yet his physical form is burning with these resonance symbols. At what point does the mathematical correction become, like, physical torture?
Well, that's exactly what highlights how Saikou's lived experience bridges the gap between Sewell's dry formulas and the visceral reality of multiversal identity.
Right, it's the friction of the math working.
Exactly, and maintaining this continuity isn't just an internal struggle. It's a desperate fight against external entities.
Which brings us to Chapter 5, the multiversal threats.
The counterflow mimics, coherence predators, and nullflow pockets. Yeah. The text says reality itself hunts Saikou Venga.
Because when his coherence drops, he bleeds data. So he uses the true flow force to bend the multiverse to fight them off.
Right, in chapters 6 through 8.
But doing so shatters his coherence with every pulse. He's surrounded by corrupted data and failed versions of himself.
And that's when he realizes the dark truth. He's the anomaly the multiverse fears.
So what does this all mean? Because I spot a massive paradox here.
Oh, what's the paradox?
Saikou uses true flow force to fight coherence predators, but using it shatters the very coherence the math is trying to preserve.
Right.
So is the SH1 resonance actually a tool for survival, or is it just the cosmic dinner bell drawing the mimics to him?
This raises an important question, and it's something Sewell addresses in his sovereign diagnostic disclaimer.
Oh, right. We need to talk about that disclaimer.
Yeah, we should be very clear here. We aren't taking any sides or endorsing anything political.
No, absolutely not. We are just impartially reporting on the text.
Exactly. Sewell states that the entire archive is a mythic infrastructure and a sovereign broadcast. It's meant to expose ritualized containment and actor convergence.
It's purely a diagnostic tool.
Right. And if we look at Saikou's final defiant stand in the collapsing slip-flow corridor, he says, "If the multiverse wants me gone, it can try harder."
Which is such a badass line.
It is. But it's not just a sci-fi ending. It perfectly embodies Sewell's diagnostic concept of metabolic sovereignty, tumor cells as strategic agents.
Wow.
Saikou refuses to be contained by the system. He weaponizes his status as an anomaly.
He claims sovereignty over his own existence. That is incredible.
It's a huge paradigm shift.
We have really gone on a journey today. We started with Sewell's reality-level scalar, looking at how mathematical concepts like category theory synchronize biological and digital states.
And then we saw how that translates to the eerie, mythic-scientific survival horror of Saikou Venga fighting off counterflow mimics.
Right, trying to maintain subjective continuity through the SH1 resonance simulation. It's a massive synthesis of math and narrative.
It really is.
But before we go, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought drawn from these source titles.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
If Dr. Sewell theorizes that dark matter is simply misrecognized scalar reality.
Right, the 0% coherence.
Yeah. Could it be that the invisible mass holding our very own galaxy together isn't a particle at all?
Oh my God.
What if it's the remnants of trillions of failed versions and corrupted data streams from anomalies just like Saikou Venga?
Trillions of them, forever trapped in the counterflow.
Exactly. Their gravitational weight just holding our stars in place. It makes you look at the night sky completely differently, doesn't it?
It really does.
Well, keep your uniqueness vector anchored, everyone. We will catch you on the next deep dive.